This video is a part 6 of a series I'm making about my last trip to Asia. If you want to see part 5, click in the link in the description down below. Hey, it's me, Julie, and I'm back with part 6 of my travel vlogs. In this video, we visit the Tokyo Disney Resort and also the Tokyo Skytree Tower. It took a lot of work to make this video, but I hope you enjoy. So we started off our journey a little later than usual. We normally would leave at around 7, but on this day we left at around 8 AM and we headed straight to the nearest subway station in Ueno. Since we left a little later than usual, we actually didn't have breakfast at this point. This is why we stopped at the convenience store placed inside the station to have ourselves a little treat. And this gave me the opportunity to film the wonderful goodies they had there. And after having a snoop around the place, we actually sat down to have our breakfast. This is what I ate. It's a melon pan and it's really good, but kind of expensive. Here I'm just writing the header for my journal entry and also the usual stuff I always write, like the weather forecast and also the timestamps of when I woke up and went to sleep on that day. And this was the outfit I wore. But anyways, we continued making our way to the subway platform and to our destination for the day, which was Tokyo Disney, more specifically Disney Sea, one of the Disney parks here in Tokyo. Like Odaiba, this place was very far from downtown, so we had to take more lines, connections, and time to get there. In the end, the whole trip took us about an hour. And on top of that, this subway line was packed with families with their small children and teenagers all trying to get to the same place as we were.
The next station is Maikama. The doors on the right side will open. Please change your for the Disney Resort line.
This was when we had finally arrived, but right from the get-go we were facing a little bit of a problem since we couldn't find the entrance to the Disney Sea Park. That was when we finally gave up and decided to ask for directions. From asking one of the workers, we found out that we actually had to take another train ride to get there, so that's where we're heading. By this point, you might be wondering why we chose to go to Disney Sea instead of Disneyland. Well, because we heard from friends and reviews online that said that Disney Sea was more exciting and different, and also because we've already been to Disney World in Florida, so it made more sense to us to visit a unique park like the Disney Sea.
Welcome to Tokyo Disney Resort. Our next stop is Tokyo Disneyland Station.
Something I didn't mention is that I'm not the biggest Disney fan, so if it were up to me, I wouldn't have picked this destination, but since everyone else wanted to come here, I just went with it. As you've just heard from the announcer, this was the moment we had arrived at Disney Sea, our main stop for the day. And here's how the ticket looked like, very colorful and with a lot of pastels. Now I'm just placing it in my journal so I won't lose it and I can keep it as a souvenir. I'm also going to be placing this miniature map of the park from one of the flyers that actually my cousin got when we arrived there. Here's the moment we all have been waiting for. We were finally inside the park. Not gonna lie, it felt kind of weird not seeing the castle as soon as we arrived, but there was this huge volcano to make up for it. Well, our first stop was, funny enough, the ride inside the volcano, which is called Journey to the Center of the Earth, and it's supposed to be one of the more exciting rides here.
Very spooky.
But once there, we found out that there was an hour queue already, so we decided to see another ride nearby called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, just because we didn't want to wait for an hour. Our plan didn't actually work since we still ended up waiting in line. Even though it was a shorter line than the other ride, it was still a line. Next, we decided to go on this attraction that nobody quite remembers the name of it or even what it was about because we quickly gave it up and opted to have lunch earlier since the park was quite full. It was at this time when I finally found a map of the park, which, fun fact, I lost it later on in a bathroom stall. Anyways, we were heading to the Cape called Culotte located in the American waterfront because we were in the mood for some hamburgers. I ordered a simple cheeseburger while my sister got the codfish burger. She really liked her order while me, yeah, not so much. And on my journal, I'm just jotting down where we ate for lunch. After a quick meal, we headed back to experience the park's attractions. This time, we went straight to the Port Discovery. As soon as we got there, we saw this ride that looked like bumper cars on water, and it looked really fun, so we decided to take it for a spin in Aquatopia. And since it's on water, I didn't actually film it. As soon as we were done, we made up our minds and decided to finally face the queue back at the journey to the center of the earth. Since it was noon, we thought most people would be having their meals and therefore the line would be a lot nicer, but we were wrong. It was still the same 1 hour wait. We gave up on the idea of going in at the perfect time and we just stuck with it. But eventually we got through the endless waiting and had a chance to ride the roller coaster. Next on our list, we went to the north side of the park at the Lost River Delta, and the first ride we found on the way was the Indiana Jones Adventure. So on the adventure we went. What we didn't expect was the size of this place and the size of the line. The waiting time was around the same as the last ride we were in. As you can imagine, it took us at least 40 minutes to get through the queue. Then, me and my cousin went to the next roller coaster right next door called Raging Spirits. My mom and my sister weren't in the mood for it, so it was only the two of us heading for another line. Spoiler alert, this roller coaster was not as exciting as it seemed, and we were left disappointed. Then, we were on a quest to find the rest of our party since they didn't exactly point out to us where they were going to be, but we later on discovered that they were on the carousel located in the Arabian coast. And since they were still in line when we got there, we sat down right in front of the attraction while we waited. Next, we were off to Mermaid Lagoon, which was right next door. None of the attractions got our interest, so we ultimately were just passing by. But before we left, I ended up grabbing a bag of some freshly popped caramel popcorn because it smelled divine. As for the taste, well, it wasn't that great. At this time, we were going back to Port Discovery because we saw that we had the chance to grab some fast passes for the Nemo and Friends simulator, so that's where we're going. Before we could go in, we had to wait a few minutes outside because our passes were due to 5 p.m. and it was 4:55. So we were just fooling around and taking pictures until it was time. And just like that, we were in. Next up on our list was the trolley. And if you didn't know, this trolley takes you to the American waterfront, which is also nearby the park's entrance. It was also at this time that the sun came out for a brief second, and I thought it was a good moment to take a picture on my film camera while we waited. And finally, we were inside the cart, so while we get ready and seated, enjoy the view. And 5 minutes later, we had arrived at the American waterfront. By this time, it was getting colder and colder since the sun was setting, and because this park is literally by the open ocean. And I don't know if you remember, but this was what I was wearing. Yes, we are getting into my outfit for today. So I wore this long sleeve crop top from Forever 21, and I combined it with this pair of blue denim shorts from Kwon. As for the bag I wore, this is a faux leather backpack from Victoria's Secret. And to top it all off, I wore this vintage windbreaker from my dad's closet. Now back to the video. Therefore, our new quest was to find a pair of pants for me in one of the park's gift shops. In the first store we went to, we found one for $100, but it was very expensive, so we went to other gift shops in the park to see if we could find one for a cheaper price, while I was freezing cold. At this point, we were having no luck on our hunt, and we were heading towards the last store we could find on a map, and I was still freezing cold. Unfortunately, they didn't have any pants, so we ended up going back to the first store to buy the $100 pair I saw earlier. And this is it, the very expensive pair of pants that I was talking about earlier that I bought in the end. Just to update you guys, this is how my outfit of the day looked like with the new pair of jeans. If you're wondering on the fit, this is called Culotte jeans made with Japanese denim, and I really like these jeans. They have a bunch of pockets and they feel really good on the body and very well made, so it was definitely worth the price. On my journal, I'm writing down that I bought a new pair of pants here at Disney because, well, I feel like all that running around is definitely a story to be remembered. Something I forgot to mention is that back when we were still there, they had Easter decorations up from the month prior, so I decided to include this Easter theme on my journal spread, and I got these images from the same flyer that I got the map of the park earlier. And I'm just gluing these things down just to add an extra touch. This was when we reached the Mediterranean harbor, the last land left for us to visit. At this moment, we were practically leaving already, but we just wanted to pass by to take some pictures and also to see what this place was like. After we felt like we were done, we were all set to leave the park. We decided not to stay for the fireworks because we felt like it would be a lot similar to the ones we saw at Disney World, so we wanted to use this time to visit another sightseeing attraction in Tokyo. And on my journal, I'm just jotting down with this marker the rides we've gone to on this day. Here we had already reached the station, and luckily there was a train there in waiting, but
Vamos esperar o próximo.
we agreed on waiting for the next train since this one was already pretty full. While we wait for the train, I'm adding in some finishing touches and my final thoughts on the Disney Sea, and to sum things up, it was a fun experience, but the rides weren't as exciting enough for my taste, so for me, it wasn't the best park. And now that the train arrived, we were continuing our journey to the second destination for the day, which was the Tokyo Skytree, the tallest building in Japan since 2012. I feel like I am in the obligation to explain why we chose to go to the Tokyo Skytree on the same day. I mean, the Tokyo Skytree wasn't even close by. We agreed on going since the day after that was our last day in Japan, and according to the forecast, it was going to be cloudy, so we probably wouldn't be able to see as far as we would during a clear sky like it was during that moment. Therefore, it was kind of like our last opportunity, and we wanted to take advantage of it. And just to show how far these two places are from one another, it took us at least an hour to get there. This includes a lot of transferring between lines, 4 in total, including the one inside the Disney Resort, fairly loaded train lines, and a little bit of getting lost inside the subway station. Lost in Tokyo, that's how I feel. That's all. Just to give a little bit of context in this part, we thought the connection to the Asakusa line was on the left, but it turned out to be an exit, so we went to the right to find where we were supposed to go. And this, by the way, was actually the last transfer between lines we needed to do in order to get to the Tokyo Skytree building. Finally, we had arrived at the right station and our last destination for the day, the Tokyo Skytree building. While we take a look at directions so we don't get lost, on my journal I'm starting a new journal entry just for the Tokyo Skytree because, well, there wasn't any space left on the other page, so I thought I might as well start a new one. Back on our journey, as you can see, by this point we had already found our way inside the building, but before we actually made our way to the top,
Tem que subir, não tem?
we took some pictures with the new era sign. Once we were done, we were making our way to the ticket counter so we could go up in the observation tower, but on the ground floor they had a bunch of cute souvenir shops and we ended up taking a quick look at what they had before getting back on track in our journey.
Oh.
This was the first ever close-up look we had of the Tokyo Skytree, and to say the least, I was surprised of how tall this building was. This was also when we arrived at the ticket booth, and the first thing I did was to grab a brochure so I could place it inside my journal. The second thing we did was to buy the actual tickets. They had tickets available for the lower floor called Temple Deck and a pack of the lower plus the upper floor, but we grabbed the Temple Deck option because we figured it would be the same view. And while we wait for the elevator with everyone else, on my journal I'm just setting down my ticket on my journal entry. Inside the elevator, we didn't even feel the speed we were traveling in, which is crazy because we were going at 600 meters per minute or 36 kilometers an hour, and needless to say, that is really fast. Finally, this was when we made it to the top of the Tokyo Skytree. This is the moment we all been waiting for, the view. I don't know if my phone camera is doing it justice, but the view from here was magnificent. We could even see clearly all the places we had been to before. Back on my journal, I'm just adding in the flyer I was cutting in the previous clip, which contains an illustration of the view from the observation deck. Meanwhile, after spending a lot of time appreciating the view, we decided to go to the lowest part of the lower deck. On this floor, they had a lot of fun stuff like these colorful souvenirs, which some of them featured the Eiffel Tower for some reason. They also had stamps that you could collect and add into your brochure if you wanted to. And this leads us back once again onto my journal. Here, I decided to add in the floor guide because I thought it gives a nice general idea of how the building works from the inside. The last thing on our list was to step on top of the glass floor. Now, I'm not really a fan of heights, but since there were 2 glass floors, I wasn't as scared as I normally would be. And after experiencing everything we could, we were leaving the Tokyo Skytree. While we make our way down, here I'm just adding some minor details so it looks more put together, and I'm also adding something that I actually forgot to mention earlier that we got in one of the last elevator rides of that evening. The last adjustment I'm making is marking down on the flyer the places we've gone to during this whole trip that we could see from the observation tower, like the Sensoji Temple, Akihabara, Shibuya, the Ferris wheel in Odaiba, and the Disney Resort. And we were still proceeding to leave this very large complex building.
Nossa, a luz tá boa.
By this time, it was already past 9 p.m., which meant that the building was closing. This is why it looks so dead empty inside. I don't know how it is during the day, but I'm pretty sure it has a lot more movement than this. And if you're wondering how long it took to build this place, here's a layout showing the building process from the very beginning in 2009 until its finished product in 2011. But anyways, here we were finally out of the Tokyo Skytree.
Eu achei que não ia abrir.
And as we were heading for the subway station, we went the wrong way and kinda got lost again.
Pra cá.
Não, peraí.
Pra cá, tá escrito aqui.
Não, a gente não vai.
Tá escrito aqui. E a estação tá ali. Ah.
Luckily, there was a station really close by to where we were, and even though it wasn't the station or line that we were supposed to take, we were happy enough to take it since this place looked like a ghost town and it was also getting kinda late. This was also when tiredness was starting to hit for some of us, including me, and for others it was hunger since we still hadn't had dinner up to this point. But we stayed strong since we were already making our way back to the hotel. And since we were all moody, we were trying to make it back as soon as possible. This was when things got a little chaotic.
Okay.
But then suddenly,
Det är en Starbucks!
we found a Starbucks on the way and I decided to grab a matcha frappuccino that a friend of mine told me about because this drink was only available in Japan at that time. And since I made such a big deal out of it, I decided to include this moment on my journal. But anyways, here we had arrived at our connection, the Ginza line, that would take us directly to Ueno. And I don't know if you noticed, but I was feeling more energized with the Starbucks drink, so it was totally worth it. Then finally, we had arrived at Ueno, but we didn't know which exit to take, so my sister was trying to figure it out with my cousin. Meanwhile, I was pretty entertained with the rest of my drink. However, after taking our time, we finally figured it out and we were off to Ueno.
Quase que meu pé não foi.
And before we made it to the hotel, we had to stop by the convenience store to buy us our dinner.
E Maru vai ficar pra depois. Vamos no combine.
Here on my journal, I'm writing down the last piece of information for today, which is where we had our dinner and also our breakfast, the convenience store. And just like that, in a blink of an eye, we had made it back to the hotel. As for my journal entries, this is how they turned out in the end. That's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!